Hello. Today on Game Changers Talks, we sit down with one of the most influential figures in the global children's toy and entertainment industry. As co founder and chair of Spin Master, the company behind global hits like Paw Patrol, Bakugan, and Rubik's, he helped transform a $10,000 idea into a multi-million-dollar global success story. But more than that, it's a true honor to have him with us today. Anton Rabie is not only a world class entrepreneur and leader, he's also a role model to me and my mentor. It's truly special to welcome him here in Portugal and to have him to join us for this conversation on Game Changers Talks. With us today in this conversation, we also have someone for whom I have great admiration and with whom I have the pride of serving side by side at Science for You. He is my favorite CEO, and it's Filipe Ramos.
Thank you.
Anton, welcome to the show. To start, I'll pass the word to Filipe. So, Filipe, please do the kickoff. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the kind words, Miguel, as always. Anton, we always start our conversations with a very important question. What was the big changer in your life, in your career?
Right. In 1999, I did my first 360, and it was brutal. I was crying inside. Let me tell you more about it. A 360 is an anonymous feedback. It's done by your coworkers, your direct reports, and it's focused a little bit more on your leadership skills, the soft skills. And it's a report card that you get that really has so much self-awareness in it. When I got to the 360, at that time, the company was doubling and doubling. I was on the front line, putting out fires every day, working from like 7 in the morning till 10 at night. And the context was real intense startup. When I did the 360 and I started reading it, I saw that I had failing marks for listening skills. I had failing marks for morale in the company and failing marks for a lot of other leadership components. I got a 6 out of 10.
Wow.
And
6 out of 10.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, for me, it was such a difficult moment because I thought if I don't improve my leadership skills, I shouldn't be the co-CEO of Spin Master. And I had this moment where I'm like, you know what? I need to do something about it, or else I need to step aside as the co-CEO. So the game changer moment was that it kickstarted for me my obsession and my drive into self-improvement. So from that moment in 1999, I became obsessed with all aspects of self-improvement. And then I was able to improve my scores on my future 360 from a 6 out of 10 up into around an 8 out of 10
Oh, right.
a decade later.
Great. What were some of the insights that emerged from those 360s were the main insights that you from those 360s you just mentioned?
360s are very delicate, and one needs to be, because you get all this information and you're like, what do I do? Right? It really, it shakes people and it disturbs people. So firstly, if you can afford it, it's really important to have a coach work with you.
Okay.
Because you get pages of information about how people perceive you. And the reason why it's so delicate and you need to be strategic is you need to watch out and consider certain things. You need to consider how many of your weaknesses are you really want to work on, right? And you should work on one thing at a time. Maybe you pick one thing to work on for 6 months or a year. Also, you don't want to be a conformist. Right? So that's a really important watch out as well. But what I did with my 360 is I just picked one thing. The first thing I picked was my listening skills.
Listening skills.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And that was my key insight. And you need to really start to love the process and the journey of self-improvement.
Okay. So the first one was the listening skills.
Yeah.
All right. Very well.
Good stuff. So here in the Game Changers, we love to talk about failures because we believe that failures are very important for us to learn and to get the successes. Do you have any one or two failures that it's been important for you and that you can talk with us about them that were important for your growth and for the growth of Spin Master?
I've made failures in every single area of the company. Failing for me is my norm, right? Like I fail so much, it's kind of weird and strange. And I also love to share my failures
That's
all
great.
the time. You know, for me, I wouldn't be where I am today without failing the amount I have. Failing has been my best teacher. It's accelerated my personal development. And it's interesting, for me, failures imprint in my brain more than successes.
Okay.
So I remember them more than the success moments. And it's just been absolutely instrumental for my growth, failing a lot. I mean, you asked for an example, you know, so you go back to 2007 when we acquired Tech Deck. So Tech Deck is these miniature finger skateboards. We buy it and they're doing 17 million in sales. After 3 years, the business was up to like 70 million from 17.
That's a good failure.
It was doing great. Right. And and then what happened was we decided to do a mobile digital game.
Ah, okay.
Right. And that's where the failure started to come in. So we hired the wrong people who were toy designers. We took toy designers from our LA office and we moved the toy designers into mobile digital games. And that was one of the mistakes. But we made Tech Deck Live. It was called Tech Deck Live. It was to do a video game on mobile devices. And at that time, mobile devices seemed obviously like the trend. And this is 2010. So as I said, we made every mistake, the wrong software, the list goes on and on. But the biggest mistake, as I mentioned, was putting the wrong people. You see, for us, when we founded the company, the scrappiness and the hard work got us through a lot. But there are times where you need to know when to bring in the domain experts. And that was the lesson from Tech Deck. But what's so unbelievable is years later, we get this opportunity to buy Toca Boca in Sweden. And we remembered the mistake we made. So what we did was we then, flew to Sweden. We saw the talent. And we saw how incredible they were. They were native experts in digital gaming, and they were so committed to the business. So the founders stayed. And because of the mistake from Tech Deck Live, which we lost over $10 million, it gave us the conviction and the clarity to acquire Toca Boca, which has 60 million monthly active users. It's thriving, and it does around $200 million worth of business for us today. So it's been the best acquisition in the company history.
That was
And
a
it's
great that was a great lesson.
Yeah.
That you took from the
Yeah.
failure, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's the good about it because you learn from something and then you don't do the same mistakes. That's good.
For sure. So now, with nearly 4 decades of entrepreneurship experience behind you, what are the key lessons you believe every entrepreneur should know at our days?
Yeah. So there's several things that we embodied naturally, which entrepreneurs need to live. You know, the first is looking at things with a positive thought, lemons into lemonade, I call it. And what I mean is seeing problems, or challenges as opportunities. Like, for example, in the early days, there are some acquisitions that came to us. Like, actually, Tech Deck came to us. The partners were fighting in San Diego, and that was a challenging company and then Cardinal was a challenging one. So we had acquisitions where they have hair on them, where people are like, I don't want to touch it for different reasons. We weren't afraid to do the work. So we always turn problems and challenges, into opportunities. We had that mindset. We didn't
Yeah.
always do it, but it's a
Yeah.
mindset. The second one is really important, is entrepreneurs, they deal with troubled times differently. The successful entrepreneurs, they don't unravel, right? Because every business goes through a cycle. There's no business that doesn't have a downturn.
Of
Right?
course.
You mentioned in COVID, your business
It was very
had some
hard.
challenges. And so when a business is going through a crisis or a trouble, that's the great entrepreneurs thrive in it. They're resilient and they don't get phased and they don't unravel. Like for us, when Aquedots, we had that recall, we lost 50 million in sales in one day. Yeah, about 16, 17 million in profit in one day with Aqueduct's recall. And it was totally out of our, you know, and for us in that moment, we were just super present, doing what's best for the customer and putting safety of the kids first. And entrepreneurs, they get through those cycles really well, and they don't unravel. And also, when you work with each other, like the two of you, you don't want to blame each other and waste energy. You write down the learning and you move on. The other thing is to invest more time upfront in your self-awareness. Entrepreneurs should, instead of when you turn 50 and 60, start, investing time in your journey of self-awareness. Like I mentioned earlier on my 360, do it as early as you can. There's a lot of reasons why. And then the last is super important because the generation today, they're not patient
For sure.
entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and when you study businesses' value creation or wealth creation, most businesses, the real creation of wealth happens after, depends on the industry, maybe 10 years or 15 years. Let me give you an example. Spin Master took 14 years to hit $500 million in sales.
$500 million.
And then just over 14 years more, we hit 2 billion. So 14 years to hit $500 million. So entrepreneurs need to be patient. When you start your business, just focus on the customer, the innovation, focus on the quality, focus on the art form, focus on, what the business is really about, and be patient because the wealth creation comes later on. It could be, you have to be patient maybe for 10 years.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's something that's really important that, especially today, entrepreneurs are not.
Patient and resilience, right?
Yeah.
The two together.
Totally.
And
So,
nowadays, it's
yeah.
really important for the next generation, for sure.
Yeah, so I talked about the mistakes. Let's talk a little bit about regrets too. You have any big regrets that you made in your career that you still have them?
Yeah, there's two. One is on the topic of advisors. Is as an entrepreneur to think about the mix and the proportion of advisors you have that are entrepreneurs versus professional management. So let me explain a little more. We've had different advisors over the years. We've had probably about 4 different groups of advisors since in the last 35 years. And our advisors have been super smart, devoted, loyal. We've had some incredible advisors, been very fortunate. But over 90% of our advisors are professional managers. And what I would recommend to an entrepreneur is to have, say, for example, you have 4 advisors in your company, have 2 of them who have walked in your shoes. They've been entrepreneurs themselves, and have 2 of them maybe professional managers. And that will help as you transition the business and you evolve the business. So that's one regret that, looking back, that I would try to have that. The second is around culture, and the culture part is really humbling. And I didn't foresee this because about 6, 7 years ago, we started to transition the company into professional management. But at that time, we hadn't systemized the behaviors and really embedded deeply the culture of the company throughout all aspects of performance management, like through rewards and recognition, through development, through every part of the business. About 6, 7 years ago, we had parts of the culture codified, but not all of it. But really, it wasn't systematized. So the challenge is it started to affect the culture of the company over the last couple of years, and that's another regret.
All right. What leadership traits do you think is most often overlooked, yet has been essential in your own journey?
Right, vulnerability.
Yeah.
The power
Tell
of
me about this
vulnerability.
before.
Yeah. Brene Brown. I don't know if you know about Brene Brown
Yeah, of course.
in Portugal. When I listened to her TED Talk, it was like explaining how I'd lived my life, my whole life, because I have a very open-hearted leadership style. And a lot of people, they get in their own way
All
when
right.
it comes to vulnerability. Let me give you some example. Most
Okay.
people, they're scared to be vulnerable, either because of fear or ego or a short-term mindset. Or a lot of people are not vulnerable because they didn't have the right role models in their life when they were a kid. right?
Yeah.
Either their father had a machismo or traditional, or certain cultures are not as vulnerable, right?
What
And
do you do? Sorry to interrupt. What do you do that makes you more vulnerable in this
Mhm.
case, for example?
Yeah, I'll get to that one. It's the way I approach apologies, you know. But let me explain the benefit of being vulnerable. Is when you're vulnerable as a leader, you establish deeper connections with people at a level far beyond, and people will run through walls for you in those troubled times, like our Aqueducts recall. Um, an approach that I've had, which is, apologizing when something happens. Like, for example, about 15 years ago, I said something inappropriate at a staff meeting. I was introducing a new executive,
Mm.
and the next morning I woke up, I walked around the office and I apologized. So for me, I'm happy to apologize whenever it's needed. Yeah, and when you apologize quickly. Don't let time pass. Also, say exactly what you're apologizing for. Be specific. And then, own it and be genuine. And lastly, when you apologize, no excuses, no defenses,
I get it.
and uh, it's I have really been disappointed how many people I've worked with who are just not willing to be as vulnerable as they should and get those benefits and apologize when they need to.
Great. So we know in the toy industry, companies go up, go down. It's not always going up. Sometimes they go down, and you have been leading it for a lot of time. And I bet that you get a lot of pressure from that, and to get the numbers every year. Do you have any tool, anything that you can help people to lead with this pressure? How do you lead with it?
Yeah. Pressure is a privilege. I say that in my mind. When you come into a situation, I really believe in that. Like, you think of an athlete who's at the Olympics, just to be there is such a privilege. And to have that positive thought and that gratitude. One of the things that has helped me a lot is mantras. So a mantra is a repetitive phrase. You could say it every day, maybe do it 2, 3 times a day. It's a repetitive phrase that helps you reframe your thoughts. It changes and shifts your perspective. So you might have a negative thought,
All right.
right, about something, with Miguel or something. And what you do is you take that narrative and you shift it from a negative, okay, to a positive. And it's something that you repeat every day, right? And for me, the insight, mantras have a lot of benefits, but how it's helped me is, in the last couple of years, there are moments that I've needed to be patient, and I'm not naturally patient, but I've done a lot better on it. So I create this mantra that gets me through a period of time, and that helps me a lot.
And can we share? Can you share with everybody what kind of mantra can
I have
get very
mantras in
interesting?
my personal life, mantras in my business life. I have mantras dealing with difficult people. Sometimes I just say, I feel sorry for the person that they have this, challenge, and that shifts my mindset about people. And I don't take it personally. But a lot of mantras are very private, so I don't share most of them. But like in tennis, I have a mantra when I play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can share that mantra. It's like a phrase. It's something you
Yeah, like
say.
if I'm about to serve, I'll just say, you know, keep your head up. Yeah, keep your hand up, keep your head up. The serve won't go in the net, right? And it's just like a little thing that you say to yourself, and it really does an amazing of shifting the brain into really positive thoughts and to deal with high pressure moments.
Okay, okay. I feel that's and you sharing that. I think it's all it's a very good giving that back for people to understand. Is there any? Okay, we talked about the mentors. Are you are you giving more back to young entrepreneurs? What can we do more on? What we can all do more to give back? And what are you doing something special for that?
I've been writing a book for the last 3 years, and I've absolutely loved the process. The book will come out in about a year. Even if it never comes out, the
It's
process has
already
been
over, or
incredible.
you
I'm
already finished, or?
one more month of editing.
All right.
Yeah, but the book gives back because um, it helps others understand that your difference is your advantage. The working title is "The Difference Being Different Makes." So everyone has a difference, and I would assume I predict about 50% of people are neurodivergent.
50%?
50%. And then with entrepreneurs, it's higher. The proportion of entrepreneurs who are neurodivergent is higher than 50%. And it's that difference that really that's their superpower. So my message to the younger generation is your differences, don't feel it like an impediment. You celebrate your difference and double down on it. And I'm giving entrepreneurs and others clarity and conviction, okay, to really not imitate others and to double down on their difference.
Nice. Very nice.
Mm.
And one of the things that I've heard from your talks, from your experience, is that ideas can come from anywhere and
Yeah.
anyone. I heard you saying this a lot of times. Can you tell our guests a little bit more about what this means to you and how it has shaped the culture and the success of Spin Master?
It's been the game changer for Spin Master,
All right.
right? You think of every single one of the great franchises or brands, they all have an amazing story of ideas come from anywhere and anybody. I mean, for us, we've always had this culture where people have just feel really free to just to brainstorm in an unconventional way, and it's a very iterative process. Let me give you some examples, and I'll go
Yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah.
So, kinetic sand we found in Nuremberg in the back of the trade show walking.
Wow.
Bitsies came off the internet. The flip open sofa came from a distributor and a friend in Australia. Hatchimals was a very iterative process with these great inventors from California. And then recently we had Miss Rachel came from one of our senior leaders was on maternity leave. And she discovered Miss Rachel, and then she came into the office and it's like, we got to try do the toys and the product for it worldwide. We're doing over 100 million with it. And our whole history is littered of these crazy stories of ideas coming from staff members that you didn't expect. And one needs to create this environment where everyone feels chilled, and brainstorming happens best when you don't, say, okay, we need these many VPs in the room at this time. You want an informal environment where it's very iterative. There's a lot of back and forth, and creatives require a different type of environment to really have breakthrough ideas.
Yeah, and that's a very good phrase, especially for people that are watching, because ideas can come from anywhere, and we need to be ready. We need to prepare to grab them, right? Because we don't know where they are coming. So to create that process, and in science for we have that we have to create the process. Then sometimes it's just an eureka, but you need to be there. We need to be ready to pick them up and to take in, because and I think that's the thing, and probably that's the part of the success. Ideas come from anywhere, but you have to be ready to get them, right. That they're open for that.
Yeah, you have to have an open mind. I mean, we just got an idea from Walmart a year ago for this product called Crystal Links. They came to us with the idea, and we're having great success with it now.
Good.
It's just all over the place.
All
You
over
have
the
to
place.
embrace those ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, so we are going to the end, and our last question, it's always the same, very important one, because we talked about being game changer in a lot of stuff, but probably the most important part of being a game changer is in our life. So do you have any game changer moment in your life that changed your life?
2001, unique ability. I was involved with YPO, and there was this guest speaker named Dan Sullivan from the Strategic Coach. He got on the stage and he said 5 words that changed my life. He said, everyone has a unique ability. And a unique ability is what you do better than others, your most natural talent, your most profound skill set, something that you're just really great at is your unique ability. And when I heard that from Dan Sullivan, that next day, okay, I straight away started to spend over 80% of my time in my unique ability. I started shedding and letting go and delegating like crazy. I stopped joining meetings on IT. I wasn't involved in process. The things that I wasn't good at, 2001, I started delegating, and I put over 80% of my time, and that increases your odds of being a game changer when you can spend, your time. And also, it has other secondary benefits because the people you work with, if you're spending time in things that you're just average at or just not as good at, it's frustrating for other people when you're in meetings with them. So there's all these other benefits about putting the majority of your time in your unique ability.
That's a great insight for sure.
Great, great insight. So, first, before thanking you, want to thank UI for this wonderful view that we are here in their office in Lisbon. I want to give a big, big thank you to Anton. It's been
Pleasure.
a
Thank you very much,
fantastic
Anton.
show.
Yeah.
It's an honor to have you here in Lisbon. It's an honor to have you here in our show. Thank you very, very much for coming. Want to thank Filipe too for this challenge
And
because
thank you,
it's all
Anton. Once
different.
again.
It was a great, great talk. Yes, thank you very, very much. And thank you all that you are there listening and seeing us. And we'll see you back next week. Thank you very much.